Hello, everybody. Hello, can you guys hear me? Let's see. I'm hoping you guys can hear me. It looks like you can. Very nice. Very, very nice. Get comfortable. There we go. Nice. So, I want to do a stream today with you guys and talk a little bit about what it's like to live in Israel. I think it's a very unique position for me to be able to live in Israel because, well, Israel's a really interesting place, and you guys know that. Um, I'm not going to rush through this stream in the least bit because nobody's on the stream. So I can take my time and I can express myself the way I want to at my own pace, if that's okay with you. And you can just hang out for the ride as I talk a little bit about my opinion of Israel and what it's like to live in Israel today. Um, Today, of course, as you guys know, we're in the middle of a crazy, crazy time in the world. And because of this crazy time in the world, believe it or not, um, in Israel, things are pretty chilled out. Nothing too special happening in Israel. Meaning, yes, I don't know, and I hope not, but there probably is some sort of conflict happening with one of our neighbors. What a pity that is, right? And I'll talk in a little bit about what that's like to live through a conflict, but I'm just kind of addressing the current state of affairs in the world. And where I'm located is Israel. So, from this perspective that I'm looking at out at the world, um, people are concerned more about their own health. People are concerned about their own well-being, and their own future, and being able to provide for their families. And what a crazy time it is. But some of you guys who are watching this are actually considering to move to Israel during this time or as soon as you can. I was speaking with somebody the other day. He mentioned he wanted to move here next year. Next year is a pretty short time, so you might as well know a little bit about what it's like to live here. And I can tell you for sure that living in Israel may or may not be a drastic change from where you're coming from. If you're coming from North America, if you're coming from a European country, living in Israel is very, very different than what you're used to. For sure, it's very different than what you're used to. Um, Let me think about that for a second. Nah, it's definitely different, and it's different in a few ways. And some of the ways are well known about. But I think some of the underlying sort of undertone messaging that is kind of around the vibration of people who have moved here to Israel from different parts of the world, specifically North America, is it's a challenge. It's not easy. And so I would highly recommend for you to consider, if you want to have a more difficult journey. I'm not saying that the end and even the middle part aren't going to be phenomenal, but the beginning is an adjustment, and that's pretty natural. And because of the shift of personality types inside of the country, because of the shift in food, pretty much like 50% of the things that you're used to, it's going to take some time getting used to moving here. And I suppose in the end of the video, towards the end of this stream here, I'll talk about whether I think you should move here. Even though I don't know your unique circumstances, I'm going to attempt to speak on it. But I just wanted to open up just want to open up with you guys with a salutation, hello, shalom, and let's get into the first thing that I wanted to really dive into during this live stream is the cost of living. And the cost of living in Israel is definitely a bit high. If you go and use Mr. Google, since you are on Mr. YouTube, Mrs. YouTube, then you might as well go visit Mr. Google and find out what the cost of living in Israel is, because it's a bit different. It's a bit high. It's a bit expensive. And in which ways is it expensive? It's expensive in quite a few ways, but the ways that are going to impact you the most are probably going to be the cost of education. If you have children, it's going to cost money to educate them, and after school activities are going to cost quite a bit of money, and certainly the cost of food and the cost of housing. So those are really some of the major differences between North America and Israel. I suppose it's kind of selfish of me just to address North America when I have subscribers and watchers of my content from all around the world. So yeah, in India, the cost of living is phenomenal compared to Israel. In the Philippines, in various parts of the world, it doesn't matter where you're at unless you're coming from one of maybe the 7 cities in the world that are more expensive to live in than Tel Aviv. Because I'm assuming you probably want to come here and move to Tel Aviv or to Jerusalem, which is a very interesting place. Man, I can say I'm not bragging at all. I've traveled to a few places, and Jerusalem is a hell of a place. I would recommend, if you're not considering to move here, which you may or may not be, you're just interested in learning about Israel, but come and visit Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is a very, very special place. Let's push forward. So the cost of living in Tel Aviv, which is where I live, man, another aspect I just thought of is probably if you are used to owning a car, if you're used to owning an automobile, that's something that's going to change for sure. If you're used to people in the streets and the demeanor in the streets of a sort of very friendly aspect, maybe you're from a small town, maybe you're from the West Coast, maybe you're from Canada. Canadians are so sweet. It's a bit different in that way as well, but that's a different sort of cost. It's the cost of moving, is understanding your surroundings are going to be different, right? The cost financially and ultimately that I want to sort of touch on for you is, wow, you're going to want to save money before you move here. I remember when I moved here, I'm really grateful I had some money saved. But I can imagine if you move here and you don't have any sort of backup. I mean, I moved here for love, so I had a partner I was living with right away. But if you're looking and you have to rent and search and really establish yourself in Israel, and if you're going to try to do it in Tel Aviv, you do want to make sure you have a nice income, a nice stack of cheddar money saved. And certainly, if you can set up a stream of income before you arrive, you will only benefit from it. That's for sure. But that's really some of the things I want to talk about as far as the cost. I could elaborate for long periods of time, but I don't want to go too long on this stream. I suppose that in the stream I can start to elaborate on specific items inside of the country, but I kind of just covered general industries for you. Let's push forward, shall we? Now, another topic that I get asked quite often, because people approach me and people have always, I'm kind of out there obviously. And people want to know, is living in Israel dangerous? The question is, living in Israel dangerous? Just like the last question, what's the general cost of living in Israel? I want to try to answer some of the general questions that are asked me on my channel, on my website, claudemasseyconsulting.org, um, which there's a link for it, of course, below. But is living in Israel dangerous? Is the question that I get asked often. And I'll tell you, compared to where I'm from, Los Angeles, I'm from Los Angeles. Yes, Israel is very, very, very safe compared to Los Angeles. Meaning, of course, no, Israel's not super dangerous place to live. I was very surprised when I first moved here and I would see young females walking around the city at 2 in the morning. You know, just a group of girls. And typically in Los Angeles, you don't see that very often. It's not that safe for people to walk by themselves at night in a very, very small group, certainly females, a beautiful group of females. So because you see this at nighttime, because you see this and you feel this, you understand, wait, there's no gangs, there's no sort of senseless violence in a sense, the North American sense of the term violence in that way. Senseless shootings in schools and all of the crazy shit, you know. Here in Israel, civilians don't actually own guns, most of them. It takes an extreme permit to be able to own a gun. I mean, like, you have to do lots and lots and lots of testing over a long period of time before you're able to even buy and or own a gun. But I've known a few guys who own guns, and in Jerusalem, you'll see civilians who are licensed and it's legal for them to carry a sidearm. So you might see somebody walking with an M16 just because he wants to. I'll repeat, a civilian can own an M16 and get permitting to a level where he's permitted to walk around the city with it. Another level, another thing that's a bit different is the fact that because everybody here has to serve in the military, you will quite often see young people, 18-year-olds, with huge weapons walking around. And that's a bit different because in the US and North America and Europe, you don't see people with guns like that. You don't see them walking around the streets in the cities with guns unless they're a bit older, maybe in their late 20s, 30s. You see them in very small amounts, but in Israel, you see them in large amounts and you see them in a very young age. It's very interesting for me to see that. And that's what the country requires. I suppose, and I personally believe, that this is one of the reasons why Israel is a safer place, because everybody is trained in the military. Very few people, civilians, can own guns. So only the military has guns. And that's a sort of a summary of if it's safe to live in Israel. I've got a few more questions I want to address, but I just want to quickly get this off my chest in this stream, those two questions. And then also I wanted to test and see what the quality's like, see if I'll get any views or any thumbs up or any questions for future live streams. I'm happy to do these live streams. I just got to figure out some of the technical aspects of it, and then I'll start to deliver more, I hope. If there's any value, hit the thumbs up button, and have a great day.